Looks like we're live now, guys. So everybody, welcome to what month are we in now? April 2022 office hours. It's been a minute since we did one of these back in Colorado. So, but there's so much going on now, and there's so many big updates with the new Parachain announcement. We got the auction coming up soon, and we get tons of questions. So I'm your host, Guinness Dash, and also our other great host here, the ever so famous Amos.
Woohoo!
So, and we see that, the team's all together today, actually really together, it looks like, right? You guys are all in Serbia together. And since COVID, this is probably the first time that you guys have all been able to really have that human interaction.
Yeah. Last total team event we had was 3 years ago. So we finally managed to get almost everyone together. Feels really good.
Well, it's hard to do when everybody's from around the world like that, different time zones and everything else. I mean, it's hard for us even to do these sometimes. Makes sense. So, all right, man. Well, hey, let's all jump in, right? Everybody's anxious for all the, get all the big questions answered. So let's open it up with this one. Did you introduce a new token for Parachain purposes? Was it not possible to use track in any way? And I think what a lot of people even get confused about sometimes is when we used to have X track and M track, it's not the same thing as having a blockchain with its own token. So can you maybe go into that a little bit of why we needed to come up with this new token and why couldn't we just use native track for anybody that might not really understand?
Yeah, you want me to take it? I can give you the first crack, and the gentleman can fill in the missing pieces. The Parachain is by definition a different network layer than the decentralized knowledge graph, and it's somewhat of an extension of what OriginTrail as an ecosystem, what OriginTrail as a technology was so far. So we're really moving from that decentralized knowledge graph network layer, which is not a blockchain. It sits on top of blockchains, just for the benefit of those that maybe are catching up on it. It's a decentralized network on its own. And it's operating by utilizing a utility token trace, so TRAC, for compensating and managing relations between the participants in the decentralized knowledge graph. When we're talking about OriginTrail Parachain, we're talking about extending OriginTrail ecosystem to another network layer, in this case, layer 1. So we're talking about blockchain. It's basically a layer that we can almost picture we were outsourcing as an ecosystem so far by implementing or by having OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph integrated and running on the networks or blockchains like Ethereum, Polygon, and Gnosis. Whilst for now, for the first time ever, really there's a tailored approach towards a blockchain layer. So a tailored approach towards a layer 1 network for OriginTrail. And in a way, it's, we were just discussing as well before, the setup has always been a 2-token model, right? It's just that the second token was Ethereum, whereas right now, when we're doing this, or Matic or DAI in case of Gnosis, and with OriginTrail Parachain, we're really having something that's tailored for decentralized knowledge graph from the technical perspective, but also tailored from the tokenomics perspective. So OTP really is getting introduced as or acts as an asset that is there to perform on the layer 1. So we have 2 network layers, and therefore there's also 2 tokens. And for that purpose, and if you look at utility of what really OTP is designed to do, so when we're talking blockchain fees, we're talking about different staking possibilities, either for the collators or for the purposes of the governance or voting on chain, as well as for the purposes, especially for the core thing, which is really exciting, which is the DKG incentives. That's what really makes it the best blockchain layer 1 to utilize OriginTrail. Not the only one. We're not precluding, obviously, OriginTrail to multi-chain, but as a blockchain layer, it's really neatly designed to kind of be able to drive those network effects even from the blockchain layer. And that's the key thing that we are achieving with OTP. And it was the only, it is the best way to make this happen, and is basically the only way to make this happen. And it's a very unique way to achieve these goals. It's unprecedented. It's a design that's unique to OriginTrail. you can't really compare it to anything else out there, because there's really nothing that you'd be able to compare with a similar setup, right? So it's and we'll deep dive into a lot of this stuff afterwards as well, but just like from a very high level, I think that offers enough of an overview of kind of like why these decisions make sense.
Piggybacking off of what you're saying right now, I mean, I don't know for anyone plug. Let me just do a quick plug to my live stream where I cover the OriginTrail white paper. But when I was on that stream, we talked about like OTP and how it has value, you know, like a monetary value, as opposed to prior when we were considering S-Track, which was more like somewhat like a non-fungible token, not really, but it didn't really have a sort of monetary value attached to it. So it wasn't necessarily, you couldn't necessarily use it to incentivize action. So this one here brings so much more flexibility and power, and from the tokenomic perspective in terms of facilitating the usage of the DKG itself. So it really is like a supercharging effect on the whole grand scheme or the tokenomics of OriginTrail and Track itself. So I was really wondering, I guess you just spoke to that. So I was just pretty much agreeing with you.
Because I think what also a lot of people don't fully understand is once you already have a token that's out there and circulating and being used, those tokenomics were never designed around the sort of tokenomics that are necessary for Polkadot, really. So when you talk about inflationary tokens, like that's kind of needed in the Polkadot side. You kind of need to start from scratch, because you can't just bridge over existing tokens and then hope it plays nice into this whole other ecosystem's economic model. It just doesn't work. So when you have things like when you have to come time to renew a parachain, for example, one of the big things is you got to make sure that you have that sort of mechanism built in where over time that the tokenomics allow you to more easily be able to renew a chain, for example, which you wouldn't be able to do with the standard token. Would you agree there for the most part?
So essentially, that's very good. I wasn't even thinking about it before, but essentially OriginTrail has always been a two-token system. It's just that the other part of the network, the other network was always quote unquote outsourced. It was not intended, it was not specifically built for DKG. The main difference here is that this is a Polkadot based parachain driving network effects. So essentially a Swiss knife for other value propositions brought in by other parachains into OriginTrail ecosystem. However, specifically tailored for the DKG use, meaning that it brings immediate incentivization for the trace usage and vice versa. The more traces used, the more OTP is being used. And I think there was a similar question around can we kind of achieve the same vision with just one token? No, it has always been a two-token model. Right now, the only difference is OriginTrail ecosystem is getting its own layer one, it's getting its own tokenomics on the layer one, and then some. So the main difference here, this then some is involving additional incentives for the use of the DKG, for the use of the trace. Many of them were kind of counted before, and there are like many more. And trace, in essence, with V6, not only with the Parachain, it's also expanding its economics, the tokenomics potential, because it's being involved in staking for assets, being involved in staking as a kind of a delegation to the nodes that are maintaining data and some other things. However, on the ODN level, because it was intended for the ODN level, it's like Genesis tokenomics were designed around the ODN layer in our minds back then, 2016, 17.
Polkadot didn't even exist.
Yeah.
And it was not in our minds that we would be outsourcing another layer, another kind of tokenomics. And right now we're fortunate enough that we have a good momentum, we have a great support, that we can not only establish something which is bringing additional benefits to the trace ecosystems, so to the OriginTrail, DKG, the ODN ecosystem, but it also brings additional benefits to the rest within the Polkadot. So essentially leveraging the network effects, and that's very powerful. And the true power will only be visible once the Parachain is launched in June. That's going to be a very powerful moment. I'm looking forward to that very much. That's the end game.
Agreed.
Awesome.
And
take the next one, Amos?
Yeah.
Oh, seems like you had more to say.
So just, it's it's perhaps just the incentives for trades to be stronger. It's it really stems from the classic economic theory, from the theory of complementarity between products. However, this is in a centralized economic terms, where you have two products sold differently, but they have high level of complementarity. And when one product grows in sales, the other one will most likely follow because of this correlation. You can, perhaps the most ridiculous example would be salsa and chips. So you want to buy salsa when you have chips. Of course, you also want to buy something else, but in case you like salsa, you're going to buy it. And there is a high degree of correlation between the two. And this is a ridiculous example, but we also have like a little bit more monopolized examples, like the Gillettes. You know, you have the stick and then you have Gillettes, and it's one-on-one correlation. And this is closer to a one-on-one correlation, because the more the trace gets adopted, the OTP will follow, because it's an offer no one can refuse. Once you're using the DKG, most likely you're going to want to run your nodes in liaison with the Polkadot Parachain. It's going to be economically sensible. That said, OriginTrail is still multi-chain. OriginTrail is still multi-chain. We're not abandoning this mission, this kind of vision. And who knows, in the future, perhaps other chains are going to be as evolved as Polkadot, and perhaps, you know, we should always open it up for, you know, more competition to improve the network layers. But for the time being, we believe that Polkadot is going to be the far best bet for the DKG users through the OriginTrail parachain.
In technical terms, it's definitely, and I myself as a technical person can say that this is the best technical design and also implementation that we've seen out of the whole space. Not to say that others are not good, but like just experiencing Polkadot hands-on for over a year now.
Oh, and it's getting hot in here.
It's hot, yeah.
Woo, things getting crazy.
You're the next to take off your. But yeah, it's technically it's the best thing. Like what's great about Polkadot is that it's the only system where I've seen they think of scale in terms of very long timelines. Just if for reference to explain that thought, so Polkadot has this concept of a relay chain. I can throw it for you if you want. So throwing it there. Okay, so you have this relay chain, which is like the main, very strong POS blockchain, which connects with 100 or so parachains, and one of those will be the origin. And these parachains are not responsible for security. Security is the job of the main chain and Polkadot validators. And that's how we manage to scale, because we take a different set of operations, such as collation, which is called collation in Polkadot world, so that collators run in this parachain, and they do less of a job, and they don't require that much, let's say, effort, so that you can scale to 100 parachains. But what happens when 101st parachain wants to join? Well, they thought of that as well. So instead of having 100 simple parachains, some of those would be in the future relay chains as well, in which we can plug another 100. Think of this as kind of a fractal structure that can infinitely grow and root its security in one main Polkadot relay chain, which is marvelous, and it works. It's proven, because they're interoperable chains. You can do this infinitely.
And like Dan said once from Akala, he said, misconception is people think you're just buying a parachain. No, you're actually paying for the security of the relay chain from Polkadot. That's really what you're doing. Is you're because they incentivize using it. You don't have to worry about the security. That's a huge lift, a huge burden off of the team at that point, because you're just depending on the relay chain. So it's the security of that's pretty unmatched, even when you compare it to something like Cosmos, where the security's, it's per blockchain. But here you're just getting it from the relay chain, so it's one less thing to have to worry about.
And to add to that, you're buying network effects. You're by default interoperable with all these other platforms, all these other networks. And the level of network effects, which is what OriginTrail is leveraging by adopting our parachain, all of that is the whole package. So
yeah,
definitely agree.
Back in the day when you had like the original proof of work chains, it was all about who can get more hash rate on a chain, and that the whole Bitcoin maxi argument that everything should be on Bitcoin, right? But then obviously you run into scalability issues. Ethereum ran into it, Bitcoin ran into it, and everybody claiming to solve it solves it by some degree of centralization. And maybe we don't want to admit it, but some of those chains that are punching like really high throughputs, I don't want to name them because I have nothing against them. It's just the type of solution which goes directly towards more centralization. Polkadot solves it. Polkadot says, all right, we have a very, very decentralized, strong main chain. Everybody else can plug in because of the design decisions that they made, such as splitting responsibilities and other things. I don't want to take too much time before of this chat, but basically they solved it, and they solved it in such a way that it's gonna be really in that sense best technology to support a scalable, interoperable chains which don't compete with each other for security. They collaborate on security, which is the completely opposite paradigm from the original one. I think Gavin Wood, as one of the main people behind it, kind of saw that early on. And when you read the paper of Polkadot, the white paper is I think from 2016, you will see that vision that is only kind of becoming apparent now, that pretty much everybody, Ethereum is also kind of going in that direction, but Ethereum has some sort of shards and there's a limit there as well, and it's going to be more scalable, but I don't see, at least I haven't seen yet this type of long-term scalability thinking. So that's why we're really strongly believe in Polkadot and the tech on that side. And mentioning OTP and trace and this analogy of salsa and chips, I think OTP is like the nitro for trace. It's gonna the usage of trace, and generally especially on the Parachain, which is going to be vastly more efficient than any other general purpose chains. Whenever you have some general purpose technology, that means it's not optimal for some use case. And the DKG is a specific use case, as this memory layer of Web3, a very clever knowledge layer rather. It's more like RAM memory in a computer. It's bigger. Blockchain is more like a CPU. There was some sort of Twitter thing that we had there, where blockchain has, like, a CPU has a little bit of memory. It's very kind of constrained, but it can do computations, and the smart contracts, they kind of do that, so it's two different layers. And if you optimize that thing, which is very constrained, to be 100 times more tailored to the RAM memory you have, the type of memory you built, you get even further scalability, but also just new things that can just open up because previously it was too perfect. So it's a nitro in many ways.
Again, sorry, I just blown. I was just thinking about your analogy. It's actually so great. When I was diving into the tokenomics, of course, everything about OTP incentivized track, and everything about track incentivized OTP. You for publishing your assets, for staking using the asset keyword staking and all of that, you'll be getting DKG incentive rewards for doing that in OTP. Not that you're getting paid. The DKG still requires track as the main utility token for the actual DKG, but the OTP is an additional incentive for using the actual track itself. So they continue as a positive feedback loop. And I was really excited to see that level of foresight in the actual tokenomic model. So it was beautiful. I was blown away. So I don't want to take up too much time, because we literally only did one question, and we have so many more. So let's keep this moving as much as we can. If we had a node running from 2020 into the end of 2021, not March 2022, will node runners still be able to gain rewards? And of course, this is piggybacking off the I do believe it's 25 million OTP. And 5 million of which will be heading towards node runners, and 20 million of which will be heading towards token holders. So for the node runners, there was a cutoff period from, I believe, March 2021 until March 2022. So this person is saying, if I ran all my node from 2020 till 2021, will I still get any sort of rewards? Is that a possibility?
Like prorated in any way, or?
Yeah,
that's the question.
The short answer is yes. So you'll get like the So it'll be like a total amount of time that nodes were up, and then were active within the network. So we're looking at what's available on chain here to really look at what's the active node. And then, yeah, if you were active for 6 months out of the 12, I mean, obviously that's how much, that's the portion that you'll be able to kind of claim. But the short answer is yes. If you feel that there's more details to be added, or is that suitable answer?
Yeah.
No, I do believe that, if anything, this is the mechanics behind management wallets, or
yeah, so there's gonna like that's generally there's you know, white paper is not a executive document, so it's a foundation
right.
Such it showcases the general directions in which the ecosystem as a whole will develop. So not everything that's an executive or like an instructional document has been included there. That doesn't mean that won't exist. So
Right. So maybe later on we'll get more details as we come closer to that time, et cetera, et cetera. Right.
Relevant, we'll announce the full kind of how to claim in all
All of that. Right.
Yeah, perhaps that's the more important thing. So just so you know, everybody knows, it's not gonna just like magically appear somewhere in your wallet that you get a reward. You'll have to go to an interface and claim.
Yeah,
and that's you know, everything will be obviously explained in details for each of the groups. But because it's a new chain, and this happens on Parachain, and then the wallets are well, any other wallets being used within DKG right now are either on Ethereum, Polygon, or Gnosis or XDAI. You know, there's going to be a system that's going to take all that into account and allow you to come and claim. And let's say if you use the same wallet on all 3 chains to run, I don't know, 3 nodes, or staked on 1 chain, it'll look at all of this and combine it, and you know.
Gotcha.
One
Okay.
No, good, because that actually was part of the next question. Really, was someone said, "Will every track be disregarded for the airdrop, Matic, XDAI?" So basically, you're saying that's all going to be taken into account, the different types of tokens that are on the different chains, securing the different chains, connecting to the DKG. So,
I mean, we have a knowledge graph. We can do it.
It's true.
If you want to be eligible for that, you should not be holding a trace on custodial wallets.
Yeah.
Right.
So it has to be in your only the wallets that, again, we're looking at what we can see on chain here.
Exactly.
We're making no presumptions, and all the models are taken from on-chain data.
So just to be clear for anybody listening, just in case you don't know, if you have it sitting on Coinbase, you want to take it off and put it onto your own wallet, whether it's a hardware wallet, MetaMask, or something, because it's not like they're going to airdrop Coinbase's 20 million track wallet a bunch of OTP or something, and Coinbase isn't going to give it to you. So make sure you pull it off and put it on a wallet that you control the private key for.
And it's really important for people to make sure they follow the instructions. We had like a small fraction of people that weren't completely following the instructions at the start read phase, and we were sending a lot of reminders and everything. This time around is going to be the same. So make sure to follow instructions. After the fact, it's going to be impossible to say, "Sir, I'm holding a billion of trace." There is no billion of trace. A million of trace on I know whatever exchange. You're not going to be able to convince us. So make sure it's your wallet, it's your keys, and that's going to make you eligible for that.
So track locked in jobs too, would that be something that's taken into account for that data? I'm not even sure if you can pull that in.
It's going to be whatever's on chain visible. So, you know, if it's a smart contract that you don't control the keys of, then you won't be able to claim happen, right? So it only looks at wallet data. I mean, at wallets. So wallets will be able to do that.
Or think of it, if you can prove that you control a certain Ethereum address,
then
whatever is somehow associated with that address,
tied to that address, right? Gotcha.
And the contract, and you cannot prove it if it's like not a multi-sig wallet of some sort, or it's just, you know, some random things. It's, we won't be able to come and claim. That's how, I mean, that's how, what we need to do, how we can work.
Someone just asked, is Coinbase wallet count? Yes, Coinbase wallet is self-custodial. You just can't keep it on Coinbase. You can keep it on Coinbase wallet. 2 different things. One, you control the keys. Coinbase exchange, you don't.
The other one, you don't.
Just to be clear. Cool. So someone said, how will track holders who are on the ERC20 wallet receive the OTP airdrop? Do we need a separate blockchain wallet or be able to airdrop into our same wallet? So these are OTP tokens, so they're going to require a Polkadot wallet, correct? I mean, that's to be assumed.
Like all the instructions are going to be put out.
We'll put all of that out.
Yep. Great.
All right. So yes, I definitely have a question here. You know, I'm very close to this one because I met Akala, Dan in Puerto Rico. So yes, so the origin, well, this question says, why OriginTrail cooperation closely with Akala? Basically, why is OriginTrail working with Akala? And basically, what are the timelines for the DKG palette integration? Because on the website, you guys put up, you know, I think June is when the Parachain goes live, and then we see DKG integration and EVM integration in July. So how does the DKG palette integration with Akala look like? And if you may ever so kindly talk about some of the use cases between Akala and the DKG, because we got a little snippet of that whole asset lending thing, which was mind-blowing. Yeah.
So right now we're talking a lot of progress, a lot of things that also require separate timelines. And many of the timelines can be firmly established when a particular phase is completed. And also going further to the Akala mention, and perhaps even other Polkadot project mentions, so there is going to be several developments, and each of those developments are going to require a separate timeline. Yet those timelines will be confirmed after, you know, everything is ready on our side. Of course, we need to deploy our own Parachain, needs to be up and running. Only then you can start harvesting network effects. So it's impossible to talk about the exact timelines with Akala or with any other project, not only because of our own internal development dynamics, but also because it's a lively ecosystem. So you are kind of dependent on other projects' progress, which is completely normal, but it's impossible to commit to any specific timeline. And OriginTrail and any other decentralized project has never been developed in a waterfall through a waterfall methodology. It's simply impossible. It's much more like developing a space ship, like the Elon Musk is doing through SpaceX. Sometimes you try, and then once you have successfully launched something, only then you can start the next phase. You cannot wait everything in advance for 2 years. There's simply too many moving parts, just like here, like DKG.
Okay, so can we talk a little bit about some of the possible, the use cases that you guys have possibly discussed with Akala and the DKG?
Well, yes. Even like things like pools, like will there be like an AUSD OTP
pool and
pool,
you know,
like
those kind of stuff?
Sure, and trace as well. Once we bring it over via either EVA compatible bridges. So that's kind of, I would say, vanilla thing. But the other like visionary is to bring the physical assets into Polkadot ecosystem and into essentially the Web3. And this is going to spark essentially the revolution, because you're going to be able to bring whatever you have, physical or digitally native, into lending protocols. And this is where the magic's going to start happening.
So quite possibly I could like collateralize my Tesla
yes.
And get like an AUSD loan and then like do something with that, right? Like,
yeah, for example, think of having the data stream that Tesla already has be part of your DKG, of the DKG. And then you are able to create an asset, basically an asset graph out of your Tesla. And I want to come and buy it from you. And this particular stream has been updating all of this data on your asset. And it's a basic, a verifiable metaverse copy of the real world asset, and as an extension of it. And
so
imagine you're taking an insurance on your Tesla. They can look into that and tell you, oh, all right, you know, we can do this type of a thing because they have all of the data. But you can also collateralize this particular thing, which is live in the DKG, and get a loan for it, or maybe not for a Tesla, but I guess you kind of know what I mean. So the point being is that whatever the asset is, and however well described it is, all of this can be used to get, let's say, a loan on a car.
And we are talking with the brands, mostly in the luxury space, automotive, and kind of the luxury automotive and the beverage. in a way, they are expressing their wish to engage consumers and giving them ways to essentially claim the ownership of the assets even before the asset is delivered to them. Sometimes you might not even get the physical asset into your hands, and yet you can claim the ownership of it because it's in a cask of something very precious. Even before it gets delivered, and if it gets delivered, of course, it's in your hand. You can drink it, but then this digital asset does not exist anymore. But for the sake of the argument, there's a lot of research being done into that direction by the brands themselves, and it is going to be interesting to see how the brands are gonna get involved, because in a way they're gonna also become oracle to attesting whether or not you're the owner of a certain physical asset. In a physical world, we're gonna need to rely on certain authorities that are gonna attest to the fact that you actually are an owner. Most likely, this is gonna start in the luxury sector because it's it brings in a lot of value, and most likely, again, as it is the case with every innovation, is going to be the early adopters that have buck to spend who are going to test it out.
Perhaps just an addendum to that, when people hear, I guess, the word authority in the Web3 space, they consider centralized or something bad like that. But no, actually, the authority, what Giga meant is that somebody attesting or ascertaining that a certain thing is true, like BSI giving you a certificate that you passed the course.
Right.
This verifiable certificate can then be queried by anybody. And then what's so amazing about the DKG is that it's the only data structure currently in Web3 that is able to connect these claims. And so let's say a couple of different sources claim the same thing, that's very easily findable and verifiable on the DKG, and you cannot do that very easily. So think of a very advanced multi-sig. You're not just saying, okay, we agree to send this transaction somewhere. Actually, they say, we agree this particular thing happened in the world with this asset, and therefore you can execute something, let's say, in a smart contract, like a loan or a certain other thing, whatever that is.
What's interesting here is the life cycle of a physical asset. From the beginning of its existence all until when it's too, I guess, old to be used, when it's obsolete, decommissioned. However, you can expand the expiry date of many physical assets, and even increase the value of the physical asset as they mature, be it cars, be it whiskeys, be it some luxury item, or by expanding by appreciating its value because of the ownership by a particular person, by a rock star, signing the product as a previous owner by a huge rock star might give a huge value increase in a product that you then own, and you can showcase that using the DKG. You cannot do that just by a blockchain. You need DKG because the assertions, the underlying data needs to be visible somewhere. And the DKG is essentially going to become a medium describing describing all the attributes that are going to come into existence in the entire life cycle of a product.
So when do we get Bono to sign some bottles of whiskey? When does that happen?
When and if we get that, I think I'm going to be the first one to claim it. Making it.
All right. What SEX is? Oh, SEX is centralized exchanges. Just for clarity, if you're not reading. Right. What centralized exchanges?
Are you applying to swim?
What centralized exchanges, if any, will support the Genesis OTP airdrop? And I know that there's like some out there that like Kraken, Huobi, Binance, name a few. I know there's a few different ones out there. So were there any plans for any of these exchanges to give a spot for people to crowd loan their DOT on? And then, because I know some people like to do it through the exchanges because it's easier than using like Polkadot.js and stuff like that. Because Polkadot.js is probably more for the developers out there than anything at this point. But so is there any hope or insight as to where people can
provide like a template response to that? Because in a similar fashion as with all the dealings with Trace and everything, we're not commenting anything around exchanges because it's outside of our scope. Obviously, token can be listed anywhere. Even during the Parachain, we saw during the Parachain auction process, we saw, as with some other projects, exchanges did get involved. However, we're not the agent to make that happen. But just because of the nature of the parachain auctions, all these are, I would say, things that might happen. Because
we're definitely not against that having more user-friendly solution, but can't comment nor commit or something like that.
And if anybody's curious, I think it's Fearless Wallet out there, if I remember right. I think that's probably the most pleb retail friendly wallet that you can do crowd loans on. They typically support them all. Well, I'm just being honest. I mean, if somebody's scared of Polkadot.js, there is some other stuff out there that you can use. It's decentralized, like Fearless Wallet, for example, where it's more just click a button and stake your dot. So cool. You want to take the next one, Amos? 15.
15, we're good.
Yeah, okay. For the OTP airdrop, is it possible to count track in Bancor? Now, I know that a lot of people would not necessarily want to take all of their track out of their Bancor. For one, of course, expensive gas and rare openings in the Bancor for track may not have the opportunity to put the track back in. So I think you guys said that there's an automated process. Would you guys is Bancor in consideration for that?
Well, it sounded like you said earlier too. Has to be something you control the key to, which obviously no one controls the key to the Bancor contract, so it wouldn't even really be doable. But we had to ask it because it's on here, and other people have asked it. So
so we get assaulted verbally if we don't ask every question. So you guys can see we're taking the hits for you.
Sorry, I just wanted to
you have a soundboard.
Yeah, the soundboard.
Do you have a DPG?
I actually have Amos a different song on one of these for fun. So
interested. I'll grab the next one. Will V6 finally address the outstanding issues with Lambda and decreasing no rewards?
Okay. I think we had the same question, just not flavored with V6 before, but essentially, V6 will introduce quite a bit of improvements, and one of the improvements will be, one of the improvements that's coming up is the ability of the node to understand the load on the network, or more likely throughput. So and this is what really comes down to when we say load. What we mean is that, is there enough demand for the supply that is available? Supply, I mean nodes. So if there's too many nodes, the economy of the system will work in such a way that large supply takes the price down. If there's not enough nodes for the demand, meaning people wanting to use the DKG, the nodes need to sense this. They need to be able to see, as I said, the throughput or the load, and see, oh, wow, okay, there's a lot of load, so it makes sense to either make my node stronger or spin up more nodes. So essentially, this improvement will help make the situation more visible, but the principles will stay the same. And the principle means, well, it's a market economy type of a game. So it's not an issue. It's a design by design thing, and it's the only sensible thing for a decentralized system. Otherwise, anybody who would in some way be influential to the price of the service of the DKG would obviously be some sort of central actor, and that's not what this is all about. So I hope that answers your question.
Definitely think it does. GT, did you want to go ahead and grab the next question?
Yeah. I'll take this one because it's a pretty easy one anyway. I think it's going to wait. But when can we expect to see the in-depth tokenomic breakdown for the 2-token model, pool rewards, stake requirements, et cetera, et cetera? So you said earlier you'll be putting something out that we can pretty much see all this beyond, the foundational white paper part of it. So when can we expect to kind of see some of these details for anybody who wants to contribute, but they're waiting for those details?
Yeah, so the next weeks will be filled up with a lot of stuff coming out as it pertains to OT parachain. So you'll be seeing details around the technical implementation of the OT parachain coming out on how really the tokenomics and kind of like certain limits that are involved there, on the instructions on how to engage either in crowd loan, how to engage then in claims once, claiming the tokens once that's relevant. So there's obviously, the timeline, since we're going for the slot number 17, And by the way, if someone's has their dot bonded, that would be a very good moment to start unbonding to be able to participate in the crowd loan, because it's 28 days and that's just about now. So that's one thing that is kind of time sensitive. Outside of that, it's like we'll be releasing a lot of stuff, literally every week. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily go beyond like with dates, because it doesn't make sense. So there's going to be activity now very, very frequently as it pertains to OT Parachain.
So if you have your dot locked up, start unbonding it now, because there's 28 days for unbonding. So this is your signal to start unbonding now. So
all right. Can anyone become a collator provided they stake the sufficient OTP? And will there be a set number of known collators for the Parachain?
Yeah, it's like it's similar collators. It's a whole topic that will be described in a lot of details before obviously the launch. So you'll be notified in due time. But it's definitely, as you know, we always kind of have the core values of OT ecosystem: neutrality, inclusiveness, and usability. You'll see that reflects also within the collator design. So it's intended to be decentralized, so that there's actually is a chance for anyone to become a collator.
Yes.
And then
that's great.
Yeah,
So it's a limited number.
But of course, yeah, it's going to be a limited number. And then there's the staking will define basically the pecking order of who is included within the reward structure for a particular thing. So, but it's definitely the intention to have it in a decentralized way. So it's not something that's kind of like predetermined.
Yeah, and likely it's not going to be one-man band. So for every collator, there's going to be a lot of kind of bandwagoning for a specific collator, because you might want to syndicate.
Yeah. So it's like they're called candidates for collators, and then delegators can delegate their tokens towards candidates. And if the candidate is above a threshold, then they become the collator for a particular period.
Okay, I think that was a lot more info. I wasn't expecting you to give that much information, actually, really and truly, but nailed it. Nailed it.
Syndicate.
Where's we need the like jingle sound bites.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Perfect. All right. So you want to take the next one?
Yeah, I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's a really long run-on sentence. And anybody out there, when you submit questions, try to make them short. I've gotten like paragraphs, and it's hard to ask a question when there's so much in there. But basically, what this person's asking is, does it make sense to have more nodes or more track in one node based off the new incentivization model with having the 2-token system? Is there better, like, would I want to run 3 nodes?
So to be clear, remember there's the whole delegation staking where when you delegate track to the node, it's more likely to win or publishings or jobs or whatever. So basically, at which point is there some sort of diminishing returns on that? And like, pretty much.
It's a very good question, but a very hard one. It's borderline impossible to.
But perhaps what is important to say here is that so if I understood the question is, should I be splitting up my stake between multiple nodes, because that might increase the chances of my nodes higher compensation. And so I think we spoke about this before, but the main utility of a node is to host a certain replica of the data on the network. And then because of this particular new feature of neighborhoods that we talked about, the neighborhood defines like your replica set, basically. So that means more nodes, you cover a wider area. However, the stake empowers your node to be more relevant in that particular area. So in that sense, it's not like easy to say what's optimal, but what's more, let's say, a bigger utility for the network is that the network can take a bigger load. So if your node is 2 times powerful, then is the same power as 2 smaller nodes, this would be pretty much an equivalent load. It would just be a little bit more distributed. So what we want to is to give the DKG not just more storage space. Storage space is like, that's the easier part. it's more capability to interact and to actually perform these the queries, the operations of the protocol, and therefore that's what I mean when I say load. Because there's, for example, right now we have a testnet which we really overloaded, and which is good because then we discover like what we need to tweak and fix. And but it's not like no system can take infinite load. There's limits. So when the limit gets, where we're getting close to the limit, then we should get more nodes. That's essentially the
And
economy.
like that's also the testnet is the right playing ground for these types of things. As soon as the tokenomics part falls in, that's like trial it out, right? So that's like you'll have the system live before it goes on mainnet.
Okay, GT, let me get a drum roll really quick. Branimir tried to give a legitimate answer to something you definitely can't necessarily answer until you know, right? But you tried your best. Can we expect to see a large jump in the use of DKG after V6 and the Parachain is rolled out? Now, of course, well, let me finish the rest actually. Do you have clients who have been waiting specifically for V6? Now, we did talk about this, I believe, multiple times, especially in Denver. But of course, it has been asked. So, yeah.
Is that a question? That was a question, right?
So the question was basically, will we be seeing greater adoption or utilization of the DKG after V6?
No, absolutely not. We're doing good.
The answer is, as previously stated, yes.
We have always been doing upgrades because there was an outstanding demand. Most oftentimes before we did greater updates, there was a certain type of demand that could not service previously. This is what updates like V6 are intended for significant chunks of not even the kind of the outstanding demand only, but also the expanding demand and the bets we have that this niche is going to grow. And of course, we're doing this because there's a certain demand pressure which we cannot service with the existing technology.
Plus the parachain network effects.
Yes, that's
network effects of growth. So you have like it just starts growing. So.
Yeah, actually, the parachain brings an additional set of use cases, even the ones that we're not going to be the only ones deploying, because it's going to become a matter of wider networks. But of course, yes, for Christ's sake.
Actually, as the pharma solution grows, let's just take even the pharma solution by itself. The scale of that, with how many continents and countries involved. I mean, I know you can't speak to numbers or anything, but in my head, that's just like, it's kind of stupid to not think that it's going to just scale up and grow up, and there'll be a lot more.
Yeah, well, in fact, Yuri did kind of talk to numbers in the last session where he said, I think some like 40 or 50% or something like that of the moved medicines are donated medicines, and that's a pretty massive amount. It's not even that, and that's just aid trust. We're not even talking about what this MMCS program will facilitate and all the additional expansion to all the other LMIC countries and etc. So, like, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
That front, we have things that are already going on. You've seen with other projects funded by governments, by the European Union, and then some. Then you have enterprise projects growing in scale and scope. And then what is even more impressive going forward is the retail. So OriginTrail so far has been very much focused on enterprise, which is great because we managed to validate important fundamentals of what we've been building. And already, this is expanding vastly. In addition to that, going to offer value propositions to retail. When I say retail, I mean any average Joe holding a physical asset or digital native asset such as NFT. This is like truly going to bring a massive expansion in the adoption. And of course, the updates are necessary to do so, because OriginTrail was always developed in stages, much like the rockets that we mentioned previously. Of course, at first it's a primitive rocket, and then you just upgrade in order to get further into space. Because there is demand. You want to go there.
Right. So we should see more. And we shouldn't be saying jobs anymore, right? We should be saying publishing. Just to go in tandem with the correct vernacular now in the ODN. And we don't use jobs now. We use publishings, right? Someone yelled at me because I was saying jobs.
It's kind of the same fundamental behind it. the naming, we prefer another naming because OriginTrail, what it stands for is it stands for individual sovereign. So sovereign individuals making decisions and making best possible economic decisions, and kind of jobs, and going into that semantic direction. Though it was a little bit too communist, and communism doesn't.
Contentious
It never
times right
works.
now.
In our opinion, we've seen it in a history, but within the context of decentralized solution, it's a very much it's a name of the game where you should really respect certain market and certain economic forces and game theoretical models, and yeah. So we wanted semantics also to reflect that.
I mean, it was.
Yeah, and also I think also like just the mechanics of how the network is going to work, just speed and like the amounts, and it publishing just makes more sense because you can have like a lot of publishing.
Yeah,
insurmountable.
If the
have
enterprise
jobs
sometimes
systems.
works in longer lead times, publishing the certificate for years, of course.
Yeah.
As an individual using the DKG might want to publish something to be there for a couple of days, which is like the density is much bigger.
It's going to be like a different mechanics, and that's why publishing will much more reflect the semantically what's going to happen on the network versus something like that.
And I was making the point to someone prior that publishing is just a better terminology for general web enthusiasts to understand. Like when I'm talking about the DKG and I had to say jobs, I'm like they're thinking I have a briefcase and I'm going to work with a lunch kit and like, oh yeah, I'm going to work. But the publishing concept just really brings it to you're talking about a technology stack, and you're utilizing a technology stack to publish. It just makes more sense. Yeah.
When we implement OriginTrail, when we stand on the solutions running on OriginTrail, when speaking to the users, to the clients paying for those solutions, we never say you're gonna be
paying for jobs,
or you're gonna be
right. Like
you're gonna publish something, and that's it. You're gonna publish, and these are publishing.
Yeah, and finally, it's totally in line with the semantics nomenclature being used in the knowledge graph world. You publish things in knowledge graph.
It makes sense. So, well, I have to train myself to start saying publishings and not jobs. I've been saying that for so long now. So,
medicine.
Yeah. I'm going to answer one from the Q&A because it's a good question. Are we close to stage 2 on V6?
Oh yeah, good question.
Yes, the short answer is yes. So we're in parallel with all of the Parachain activities going on. The latest implementation of smart contracts for Trace to be moved in full circle between the publishers and the data holding nodes is actually being finalized. And it's a completely revamped system. So it's much more efficient, secure, even leaner. So one of the things, for example, that
wait, I'm sorry, Brenna, by revamp, what do you mean by this? You guys had an initial version of this that was revamped. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm thinking revamped from previous versions of the protocol.
Oh, there's previous versions of, okay, right. Okay. Yeah.
For example, you will see vast differences. For example, the difference between what you see on V5 now is that publishing requires 2 transactions on the blockchain, which is for that specific design is needed. However, it increases complexity. You need 2 transactions. In the V6, you will, as a publisher, you will need 1. That is better for user experience. For example, for anybody publishing through a browser, let's say on their NFT, they don't need to do like 2 transactions like on Uniswap. You need to do like approve and then swap. Here you would only do 1. But not just that, complexity goes down significantly and obviously cost. 1 transaction is cheaper than 2. Because when you have 2 things that need to happen in sequence, like you always have to take care of every possibility. Like what if the first transaction goes through and the second one fails? And then if it fails, then the node needs to repeat it. And then what if there's an expiry with the timeout that happens and so on and so on. So not just that, but also with this type of a system, we actually get a different type of the way this distribution happens, where, as I said, around neighborhoods at stake. So all of these things in consideration make for a completely revamped system, which is simpler, which is really good. Every time we're building something foundational, like a protocol, you want to have it simple, because the simpler it is, that means the wider set of cases you can take. So it's a bit of a long story here, but essentially, yes, we're finalizing those. Actually, we're having some workshops here. That's part of the reason why we met, to basically wrap this whole effort around, and hopefully very soon launch the stage 2. So yeah, it's coming.
So
Nice.
keep our eyes out.
No drums.
We're almost there. You want me to grab the next one, GT?
Yeah, you go for it.
All right. To my understanding, this is the question, by the way. To my understanding, V6 nodes on the Parachain will be rewarded in track OTP for holding published assets. By this, I do believe the person is speaking to the DKG incentive pool by utilizing track. So you'll be getting track plus some OTP. And basically, when will the reward payout for OTP take place? But now that I asked this question, I'm thinking that this is more along the lines of you guys will release more information when that time comes, because you can't really talk about that without talking some of the other things.
Yeah, you also saw that there's there's a little sequence happening as the different stages of the Parachain gets launched. So like it's first things first. Yeah, for now I think it's suffice to say that things will these types of activity will get rewarded with OTP, and then all the details. Yeah, they'll be communicated through proper documentation, and right, be able to get updated and all that as times comes closer to getting the DKG incentives rolled out.
Okay, so guys, then even for the next AMA, keep these questions until we get more details.
It's all right.
It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. Everybody's just really excited.
It's reasonable, right? I'd be asking probably the same thing. It's just that it's something foundational like that obviously opens up curiosity, and that's great, because also these types of discussions and inputs are they're valuable, right? So it's we have a lot of talks with different stakeholders as to how best to design certain things, or how to tweak, or how to make it as the best possible. So I don't feel that anything was misplaced, and it's also kind of reasonable. The responses are reasonable as well in terms of these things will get available.
Yeah,
awesome.
Hear that the validation people already thinking as if the asset is already here,
I'm pumped.
as if OriginTrail Parachain is here, and then
Yeah.
what now? Which is great. It's
excited.
a lot of great impulses here and also elsewhere.
It's exciting. Yeah.
This is even better than I would have expected before we launched the OriginTrail Parachain details. We're getting a lot of congratulations from all directions, and perhaps one thing which we didn't say is when Parachain is live, this is going to be like a game changer also for the Polkadot, because for the first time ever, a chain is going to be launched with an immediate real world activity, which is like nothing we have seen before.
Yeah, I imagine Gavin's chomping at the bit at thinking about getting pharma tracked using Polkadot as the underlying tech. He's probably like, woo! It's not just an NFT or a game or something, so.
I mean, we saw Dan from Akala himself saying he thinks that OriginTrail is like the biggest gem on Polkadot. He himself said it. So
best kept secret, they say.
The best kept secret, yeah. Right. So
but let's not keep it secret anymore. Now is the time. Let's make some noise out there.
More details to follow.
Stay tuned.
Let's see. Are there any ways to distinguish bad actors from good actors? Will there be a version of current telemetry system to determine node ranking? So I think what they're asking, like, is Polkadot.js, for example, you can see nodes that are getting slashed. You can see uptime or whatever. Or like, is there going to be like something like that built into the telemetry site, or are we going to monitor this stuff on Polkadot.js just like we do other parachains?
So this is a question regarding the Parachain or the DKG? That's
the parachains, because, and this is why, and it's funny because me and Amos were talking about this before, and I said I don't think this person fully understands the difference between the two, so I know why it comes off a little weird. So telemetry is basically to monitor the DKG, the size of the DKG, and what I think what they were asking is, are you going to build like a Polkadot.js type thing into the telemetry site to also show nodes that are getting slashed, or node rankings, for example, or are we going to telemetry completely separate from those statistics? So we'll have Polkadot.js to monitor node uptime and slashing, and then we're going to have telemetry that's just monitoring the data that's on the ODN.
Yeah, we need to understand first and foremost OriginTrail. So the ODN and layer 1, 2 different systems still.
Yeah.
And kind of commingling both into like, is this telemetry going to serve both? It's not going to happen. It should be separated, and
Right.
kind of just doing it for the conciseness of discussion. It's separated, and telemetry pertains to the DKG, to the ODN.
Yeah,
I guess the reason I brought it up was because I knew the answer to that. But what I would say is you'll probably just go to polka.js to be able to see for what you're looking for, who asked that question. Is that type of data will be just like you would Moonbeam or Akala. I mean, that's what that site's for.
The OT Parachain, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
I know that you know it, but just kind of as a signal, it's an important signal for us to iterate kind of a couple of times or a few times that these are 2 separate networks, 2 separate systems. They can even live independently, which is very important. And one thing which we did not say, someone outside of the OriginTrail community could build the DKG specific parachain.
Yeah.
And launch the auction. Most likely, that kind of parachain would not have trigger incentives for the DKG usage, so for kind of augment the value for the trace, actors. But some other project or some other let's say foundation could have launched a DKG specific chain, and in that case, it would be separated to the same degree as in our case.
Well, yeah, because the DKG is essentially kind of like a relay chain in a way. So eventually could grow to that type of concept, and where you can leverage its security and you can connect to it, have your own blockchain that's connected to it, and so
that's a very good kind of
The DKG's on knowledge graph relay chain.
Coming soon. Wait for more details.
We can decentralize knowledge graph and paragraphs. Let's not make people confused.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right, well, while we're talking about the telemetry site, this next question.
Yeah.
So will we use the telemetry site the way we use OT Hub today? Like if we want to see what publishings our nodes have got for the day, or we want to see how many tokens we have locked up and how many available. So we used to remember Houston, and then, and I get that the telemetry site is just for metrics of what we're seeing on the ODN as far as seeing inside the data. But what are we going to have for like an OT Hub type replacement, or is Houston coming back alive, or is it what can we expect there?
We kind of discussed what the vision here with all the team members at the core development company, and we really discussed what the vision is. And there are so many things that we intend to do and implement, but the question is if kind of the vision and the direction we're going can be best represented by the train, and the things that we're gonna do along the path towards the vision can best be represented by the stops the train makes. It's almost impossible for us to predict more than just a couple of stops before everything else is a little bit more blurry, because we need to launch Parachain, etc. There are so many things like V6, and then like you said, the interface that's gonna seamlessly allow people to monitor all those things. It is our intention to develop that. However, we cannot say it's gonna be developed in June. It's impossible to say that. Most likely it's not going to be launched in June, definitely not. But just like when it is out there, when it's going to be in the works, definitely we are going to most likely roll out a certain timeline discussing what that exactly is going to look like, and only then it's going to be I guess known to the month exactly.
First things first.
Yeah.
So short answer is yes, these interfaces will exist. And then an extension to that, which is also a call, is that I've seen some community members that are actually actively asking to participate in such projects. So if you're interested in something like that, shoot us a message, because this obviously all of these things are going to be developed in an open source manner. And there's also this little thing called the bounty program that you might have heard of, which can actually help you earn some rewards for that. But anyhow, we'll be speaking more on that as well. But the point is, yes, the interfaces need to be there, and ideally we can build it together, particularly interfaces that, for example, if you're a node runner, experienced node runner, it would be great if you participate in building a tool for such as Houston, because, well, you're kind of the proto persona user, and you will know better how to build it, and we will know better together. So yeah, take this as a CTA to bring us up and let us know if you're interested, and it would be great to collaborate building these things together.
Okay.
There's also the one point on, I'm not 100% certain you mentioned that, but on the OTP distribution, there's also a community treasury, which will be intended to allow anyone that's a part of OT ecosystem to propose their component, a project, an activity, and get that voted in to take a part of that treasury as a compensation or as a stake in the network to execute on that. So yeah, we're excited also to see that happen.
It's a very nice segue to me saying that it's not only going to be up to us to decide, so it's going to be the community that's going to eventually decide if they want a tool or not.
Oh, okay.
Put in with OTP, so that's
Well, we know we need a tool, because if you can't see what
Yeah.
your node's doing, what are you going to run a node for? So there has to be something. Something's got to get figured out there. But hopefully, some community members maybe step up and help contribute to that, like the way Luke did with OT Hub.
Yeah, very help with that, because you're going to be able to propose and then also vote on it. So the governance is an important part of it.
Oh, cool. That's good to know. Awesome. Governance token. Woo.
Yeah, so the funds from the treasury can then be used to fund this. That's basically it.
Great.
Before I move on to the next question, I want to give a quick shout out to Cosme Cloud, Brannaman. He's actually been working on some really nice DKG tools. He producing public DKG.info, which is a website that allows anybody to just go on there and publish assets, use V6, play around with the test the network, and actually utilize the OriginTrail ecosystem. And he made
I think that was supposed to be a secret for now.
Yeah, no, he's published it right there. He spoke about it right there, public.dkg.info. It's in the chat.
Okay.
So I just wanted to, give him a little shout out, because these are the people from the community building the tools on the front lines. Like, these are the guys. So yeah. So before we move on, well, I did that. So let's talk about this $5 million. You dedicated, I believe, 125 million OTP towards the DOT folks. So for example, let's say we only use 50% of that pool or 70% of that pool. What happens to the rest? Is it automatically redistributed among everyone that donated, or does it just go back into like an OTP pool for the community, our different incentive pools and whatnot?
It goes towards the future auctions. So that's like that's a pool that's intended for the auctions. And why is that important is because every auction is also an opportunity to engage, to expand the community of OriginTrail's ecosystem. So those funds are really there. The one thing that you also might have picked up on the white paper is that there was no pre-sale. There's no kind of like a pre-distribution of OTP. It's all the genesis for purposes that are described within the white paper. So that's very important, because also the chunk that's allocated for anyone that takes part in the crowd loan and that contributes their DOT, the intention is to have DOT holders take part in the OriginTrail ecosystem and become part of this of our ecosystem as well. And that's why these funds, they're literally intended for that. Did we just lose connection? No, Jason, you're still here. That's very
I'm
good.
still here. You still got me.
Cool. So yeah, like and that's the point of it. So if they're not, and the 125 is basically if you just run the math, it's the regular rewards plus, as if all the bonuses get fully utilized, which it's highly likely that they will not. So whatever remains as a leftover amount for after the crowd loan has been finalized will actually get then put into the future auction pool, where again, in the next auction, it will be used for the same purpose, which is the purpose of building out or attracting DOT holders and for to take part.
So there's your economic model as far as thinking ahead for the renewals that people were wondering for Parachain renewals.
So partly it's from that, and partly it's from, you've also seen there's a part which is allocated for within the Genesis. So that's 50% of the entire OTP. And then there's the other 50%, which will get released every year in perpetuity.
Inflation, 5%.
So it's kind of like, it functions kind of like an inflation in terms of it increases the amount of the asset in the circulation, but it's also capped. So it's capped at obviously 1 billion. So it will always take 5% of the leftover amount in asymptotically getting closer to then the 1 billion point. And from that pool as well, you will fill the future auction pool. So 30% goes to that, 30% to DKG incentives, 30% to collator rewards, and 10% goes to the community treasury. So that those are the 4 that get filled up from the inflation-ish release every year. So that's kind of how you get sustainability. So we've designed kind of like, it's always, that's the red thread is how to ensure that long-term this really makes sense, and that the kind of distributions, any distribution that happens really goes to those that are relevant actors within the ecosystem. Because obviously, we have the voting that's tied to it. There's they can really use it for gas. So it's really like a strong utility focus, and I think it makes it very exciting because there's a lot of incentive for you to put your OTP to work as well. So it's a very interesting tokenomics. So I'm excited to see this play out.
Sweet, awesome.
Yeah.
So this next question, I think I know what they're asking, and it might sound funny, but I'm gonna ask it anyway because I know I've heard other people kind of ask it, which is I have a question about people who cannot operate the node. Which do you think you should own, OTP or Track? Does Track also have staking? Now we know we're going to be able to delegate our Track tokens to node operators. So I guess what they're asking for, if you're a non-technical person, it almost sounds like they're asking, does that mean I should get OTP instead of Track? But really, I guess if you want to explain, like, what should someone be really thinking about holding, OTP or Track?
Sounds like a financial.
I didn't know how. I'm trying to think of how to spin this for this person, but I know other people have asked this, so it's the best I could do.
Whatever beep we make about we create, even if it's very neutral, it would could be considered financial advice. So
right.
I know.
But when will we have the details, I guess, for the delegating your Track? Is that what will come out with Parachain details as well, or would that be maybe another month after that or something around there?
For delegating trace in
or what's the proper word I'm looking for? Maybe it's not delegating. What
delegating?
Yeah, that's
fine,
for
so
DKG.
you'll see it when the with what Branimir mentioned before. So when the stage 2 basically gets active, it includes the tokenomics. So it includes the staking in testnet as well. So that's how you'll be able to trial it out and then see and have the full experience of what does it mean.
So somebody who doesn't run a node will still be able to test as if they're contributing their Track to a node runner in the testnet?
I don't think that is that going to be enabled immediately.
Can you repeat that, please?
So what they're basically asking is, so you say you can test out what the staking is going to be like for Track. The staking for a non-technical person means I can take my Track, put it into contribute it to Amos's node for jobs, right? So when is the end user going to be able to simulate that? Like, because he was saying that you can test the nodes in the test network, but maybe somebody wants to see what it's like if I contribute my fake Track to this fake node and see what I get for rewards. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so over the course of stage 2 and stage 3, while we work on the migration, this will be possible. So immediately when we start stage 2, because this requires a little bit more tidying up in terms of experience.
So you need to test the staking first, because before you test the delegation, right? So, and then depending on really how that progress goes, then we'll see what how best to add the delegation in and when to kick it off. But it's definitely something that we see as, obviously OTP kind of incentives are also aimed at those that are delegating Track. So it's very much in the crosshairs.
So you might have noticed there's like pretty much a release every week on the V6 testnet.
Yep.
Essentially, once stage 2 kicks in, it kind of like there's this start of stage 2, but like there's going to be releases happening at least once a week. That's what the target. Actually, what we're targeting is to go quicker, so we can do releases quicker. Now that also depends a little bit on how well the community is able to respond. And I'm going to use this opportunity to say to every node runner, if you're running a node, please pay attention to the announcements that are happening on Discord and Twitter, because if you're just like, if your node, your V6 node is on and you're not paying attention to the updates, you might be missing out on bounty rewards. But also you're not, the point why you're missing out on bounty rewards, you're not helping us enough. So
You jerks.
So yeah, please, if you can, if you're participating in the testnet, the point is to help us develop it and obviously earn some rewards for that. So update your node, remove GraphDB, install BaseGraph. This is changing the KPIs on the network dramatically, actually. So anyhow, that's it's a call for everybody to participate. And then again, these updates, like I said, ideally we can push 2 releases a day, but like I'm not sure if it's feasible to expect that people will be, so much engaged that they're able to like monitor every single thing we announce. So currently the target is once a week, and then we want to amp that up because that helps us be faster, not just in terms of delivering quicker, but also learning faster. We need to put something on the testnet to see how it acts. And currently testnet is around 350 nodes, very with a wide variety of setups. So it's a great environment. However, the bigger, the harder, the more inertia it has, right, for updates. So anyhow, these things are coming, and we're going to be iterating on them during stage 2 and stage 3. And then when Parachain is live and we establish all of the conditions for the DQG to be integrated, we go and we integrate it too.
All right. Well, it looks like we are at the final question for the day. So you guys did well, and for once we actually didn't hit hour and 40 minutes. So let's get this one out of the way. While the OriginTrail has a dedicated and loyal fan base, yours truly, to beat our competitors and win a Parachain auction, it will take huge contributions of DOT from serious investors. Of course, not joking investors, serious investors. So what is the team doing to attract such investors? I think it's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Do we have an hour?
Okay. Yeah, sure, I guess. As long as you need.
Yeah, and there's been, it's not like.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, like, there's definitely been a lot of activities happening already, but if we're looking forward, it's what we really see as a contributing factor to engaging the DOT community is to kind of be present from the side of the OT community. And we've seen that there's been a very good, a lot of activity already, but we see that there's definitely more exciting stuff coming in the next week. So we gotta kind of keep up the momentum to also and be welcoming to everyone that's coming kind of from DOT community, to let them kind of have the best introduction into everything about OriginTrail as possible. In addition to that, we're doing Amsterdam next week, so that's going to be a very exciting thing that's happening.
Did you say Amsterdam? Is that really what they called it? No,
First time I'm hearing it. I'm really liking Amsterdam. It's a really good name.
It's gonna be exciting. And then yeah, so like there's a lot obviously happening, but it's definitely a joint effort, and we're excited.
Yeah, that's just from now until the end of the Parachain auction.
Yeah,
the efforts invested into this are incredible. The last half a year,
even a year.
Some. I mean, between the 3 of us, we've traveled 100,000 miles at least for exactly this purpose, and perhaps something else as well. But meeting people, the biggest supporters of the Polkadot ecosystem, even stumbling upon Gav in Miami and then talking to the bunch out there. So it's we've been around.
Actually, there's quite a great night. I was just looking at Amsterdam. It seems to be a pretty good bunch of people there. Aster, Akala, Parity, Polkadot, a lot of good names out there. So you guys are definitely networking with, all the core players. So
yeah, and
yeah, sorry, it happens with ETH Amsterdam, the big hackathon in
right.
So we'll be networking.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so 2 events in one town.
So if anyone's in town as well,
yeah, join us.
Yeah, if anyone's in town, come eat some space cakes with the OriginTrail team in Amsterdam.
So we are being kind of dragged into, not only by ourselves, but it's kind of a vortex sucking us in, because in the last couple of months, from at least two projects and the parity kind of the entities behind that. Sorry, the Polkadot the Polkadot, the Web3 Foundation. So the entities behind the Polkadot, people from there have been kind of just inviting us to just do it, saying when Parachain. So a lot of invitations over the course of the last few months, and it shows. I mean, since we released the news about the Parachain and the white paper and the new website and the whole thing around it, we managed to surpass our expectations, and we filled in all the 5,000 early bird spots in a very, very short time. Right now, everybody that have subscribed, they're gonna have to claim that, so they're gonna receive an email in quite soon, so that they kind of confirm their spot amongst the early birds. If they're not gonna claim it, someone else will take it, because right now we have, I think, almost 7,000.
Wow.
7,000 people subscribed for that.
Wow.
It's gonna be, so it's the thing is, we believe that we can attract a tremendous amount of DOT. That's one. But secondly, and even more importantly, we want these contributions to be as distributed as possible in the similar fashion as we witnessed when we completed the ICO. So the contributions were very much stretched thin, and that's why OriginTrail today, as we know it, is a very decentralized project.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I think we've pretty much covered everything we wanted to talk about today. How are you feeling, GT? You feel like anything you want to get off your chest? Any backstage fightings with Branimir?
Yeah, no, we got most of the details we can get, and I think we're all just waiting to see more of those Parachain info come out for the people with their DOT to entice them. So I think everybody's excited to see that. So pretty cool.
That's the stage 2. Right now, it's I mean, it has always been like in this, but in the first phase, we wanted to bring the OriginTrail community on board, because OriginTrail community is the best outlet also to communicate all the values and everything we have done so far, plus the Parachain story towards the newcomers. And this is where we count on everybody here to chip in, to be vocal about it, to brag about our successes, about the future cool things coming out. I think you are all the best educators for the DOT holders. We're gonna do our part, and surely everybody here around, and there are so many knowledgeable people in the OriginTrail ecosystem. We rely heavily upon you to help us out.
And thank you guys. And come join us in Amsterdam or New York. We're over the next couple of weeks. We're there, so it would be lovely to meet more community members live. It was great when we were together in Denver. That was
that
was almost one of the best moments of my life.
It was cold.
Second only to Puerto Rico.
Hey, you know what? I'm gonna just be bipartisan on this one.
You wouldn't want me and Amos in Amsterdam. That would be a dangerous time.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
And it's May, right?
That's New York.
That's New York.
New York,
okay.
yeah.
Oh man!
All right, guys.
I don't know. This has to be one of the most hype test nets I've ever been a part of. I think everybody's pretty excited. GT is excited. We're always talking about the tech. GT, I know you're gonna close us out. Feel free.
Yeah. And I just want to thank everybody. It's cool to do these, and it's always I think the community gets a lot out of them. So, and it's a good way to just get all the questions together and get them out there. And then what happens? They usually have 20 more questions after those questions are answered. So, but that's the nature of the beast, right? So, all right, everybody. Well, thanks for watching, everybody who joined, and thank you guys for being awesome as usual, and Amos and everybody else. So until then, I want to say thanks, everybody, and take care.
Take care. Have a good one, guys. Oh, we have sign-up music now. This is great. Awesome.